Deconstructing Obama. He's raised more money than any presidential candidate in history and raised the hopes of millions worldwide. But what about his actual policies? This week, we filter out the hype and take a hard look at the platform.
From the White House in Washington, D.C., I'm Avi Lewis, and this is Inside USA. When Barack Obama arrived here in Washington in 2005, he was a newcomer to the national scene. In 3 short years, he's generated more frenzied excitement than any presidential candidate in decades. Hundreds of thousands have flocked to his speeches, bought the T-shirt, and as they say in America, drunk the Kool-Aid. The media attention has been equally excitable. Whether fawning or scathing, every aspect of Obama's character and life story has received endless scrutiny, while telling us remarkably little about what he actually stands for. So it seems like a good time to take a look at Obama's policies, particularly with regard to the economy and America's place in the world as an antidote to the political circus. On this week's Inside Focus, we take a look at Barack Obama, not so much the man as the plan, buried beneath all the spectacle. What do you see when you look at Barack Obama? By now, it's a cliche that he's a political blank screen on which many of his supporters are projecting the candidate they want to see. But beyond the psychoanalyzing, an allergy commonly associated with election season, there is an actual record, what Obama says he will do as president.
That my faith in the American people has been vindicated.
It's found in his speeches and policy papers. So in order to pierce the hysteria and parse his positions, we talk to a wide spectrum of people in Washington, D.C., from policy wonks and professors to activists and campaign advisors.
I think that what we're in the midst of is a development of the possibility of a radical transformation in American political culture.
I think Obama is heading where he's been heading his entire political career, which is to be president.
I don't have any confidence in what he's saying. I mean, I just see it as more of the same.
Then yes, you can find parts of his platform that are inconsistent, and I'm not happy about them, but they're there and they've got to be.
It's still hard to get a handle on exactly what kind of vision he has for the future.
I will restore our moral standing so that America is once again that last best hope for all who are called to the cause of freedom, who long for lives of peace, and who yearn for a better future.
At the center of Obama's foreign policy is a seemingly unequivocal one, his commitment to ending the war in Iraq. It's the position that most clearly distinguished him from Hillary Clinton in the primaries.
I will bring this war to an end in 2009. That is a commitment that I have made to the American people.
But as primary season gave way to the general election, the message from the Obama camp changed. Now the emphasis is on redeploying troops to Afghanistan while leaving a residual force in Iraq. Mission change, not mission end.
You know, John McCain likes to say that he'll follow bin Laden to the gates of hell, but he won't even follow him to the cave where he lives.
By getting the combat brigades out in 16 months, you change the mission. Therefore, the United States is no longer doing combat operations. Your residual force stays there to continue to train the Iraqis as long as they feel that it's necessary. But the main thing is you change the American mission from combat and you free up more combat forces to go to Afghanistan.
If he withdraws U.S. combat troops, wants to keep the U.S. mission there, well, how's the U.S. mission going to be protected, right? And then that just leads to Blackwater. And he's never taken a position against privatizing or outsourcing the war to private contractors.
We are being forced to pay for, as taxpayers, the buildup of the largest mercenary army in the history of the world. And there's no discussion about it in the national debate between the presidential candidates for the top imperialist power position in the world. There's something missing in that picture.
You can't say, well, we're going to leave and take everybody out, and then who's going to take care of your diplomats? You have, private security firms protect our diplomats in many countries around the world.
He is talking about, well, no, we're going to have a set timetable for withdrawing from Iraq, and that no, we want to move troops to the good war, to Afghanistan, as if there is such a thing as a good war. That is not the way to win the hearts and minds of people. is to go after them with weapons.
Our ability to do in Afghanistan what has been done in Iraq, to have an effective counterinsurgency strategy, you've got to eventually extend the sovereignty and the impact of the Karzai government. And so you do in fact have to increase the available resources to Afghanistan.
If you're going to extend the sovereignty of the government of Afghanistan, then surely you would have to withdraw foreign troops.
At some point, sure. I mean, no one likes to be occupied.
So Obama's Iraq policy is now inseparable from his Afghanistan policy, which means intensifying the war there. It's a military platform carefully calibrated to differentiate him from John McCain on Iraq, but synchronize him with the U.S. foreign policy establishment on Afghanistan. A similar pattern emerges with his discourse on the Middle East.
You don't protect Israel and deter Iran just by talking tough in Washington. But I will also renew the tough, direct diplomacy that can prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and curb Russian aggression.
This was like a common trope in cowboy movies in the 40s and 50s of the good-hearted gunfighter sheriff who would talk to the villains first and then kill them all, right, when they didn't say the right things.
Do you think Obama's changed tone and substance on Israel and on Iran?
I definitely think that he has changed, tone and substance on Iran. But I mean,
on Israel?
Obviously, I mean, Israel is a strategic country and an important ally and friend of the United States. That's a fact. That's not going to change.
It's clear that when it comes to friendship with Israel and threat from Iran, U.S. rhetoric would not change significantly in an Obama administration.
To the extent that Iran is pursuing a nuclear program, which has the potential to cross the threshold and become a demonstrated nuclear power, that is of great concern to the United States. It is the concern to the Bush administration. It would be a concern to either a McCain administration or an Obama administration. It might be even the most significant issue confronting, the next president.
And Iran is the target of choice right now. It is the other. We always have to have an other in America, whether it's Stalin and communism, whether it's for the whole Cold War. We always have to have an other.
One of the reasons Obama's foreign policy shows so much continuity with the American status quo is because his foreign policy advisors are a who's who of the American status quo. These are certainly not the hawks of the Bush years, but they do share one fundamental belief.
I look at his advisors and I look at a lot of people who firmly believe that the U.S. military, the force, the muscle of the United States can be used for a force of good in the world. Now, to some people, that's just another way of saying the same things that the neoconservatives have said throughout the Bush administration, that we can use the United States power to go and liberate parts of the world or make it safer or more to our liking. So I'm not sure that's changed.
There's no objection anywhere there to the thrust of American foreign policy and the notion of military interventionism. In fact, he wants to increase the size of the military and the defense budget more effectively to be able to intervene.
As president, any president, whether it's President Obama, President McCain, has the right to order U.S. forces in pursuit of U.S. national interest.
I don't think Senator McCain or Senator Obama, as president, is going to do much of anything for at least 4 years and possibly 8 in the way of international activism, because our economic house of cards is falling apart right now.
That economic house of cards has come to tower over other issues in America today. On the campaign trail, most of Obama's economy speak is about green jobs and alternative energy.
And I'll invest $150 billion over the next decade in affordable, renewable sources of energy, wind power and solar power, and the next generation of biofuels, an investment that will lead to new industries and 5 million new jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced.
But when you read his platform, the most detail and the most money is in his stimulus plan to kickstart the economy. It's a package worth $50 billion, and it includes a fund for preventing home foreclosures, an extension to unemployment benefits, and money to help states pay for social programs. But the biggest piece of the plan is tax rebates, much like the ones sent out recently by the Bush administration.
There is a very good economic rationale for these rebates. I mean, our economy is 70% consumption. And if people stop spending, they actually make the downturn deeper than it would be otherwise.
This stuff is a drop in the bucket. It's like what we used to call a long time ago putting a Band-Aid on a cancer sore. You know, what we need is massive public investment.
I agree with you. They're Band-Aids, but sometimes when you have a cut, you need a Band-Aid.
And if all the public policy they're talking about is investments and tax rebates, they're just talking about still giving a little bit more back to the people who already have a little bit, as opposed to working hard to make sure that everybody is whole.
Whenever Obama is challenged from the left for being too cozy with the ruling class, he proclaims his progressive credentials by citing a very particular part of his life.
I've spent my life working for change that's made a real difference in the lives of real people. That's why I turned down the corporate law firms to work as a civil rights lawyer, to fight for those who had been denied opportunity.
It's a narrative that has really stuck for Obama, that he comes from a background of struggle, of organizing, of social movements. But it's a narrative that is contested.
Where in my day, I guess we just assumed that when one talked about community organizing, what one meant was trying to mobilize people to challenge political power, either to win it or to change it. What's increasingly happened over the last 25 years, I think in direct response to privatization and to atrophy of public service provision, is that community organizing has become sanctified as a form of voluntaristic service provision.
After winning the nomination, Obama's target audience shifted from the Democratic Party faithful to the full spectrum of American voters. And in policy terms, he wasted no time in moving to the right. His supporters don't deny it, his critics can't abide it. But here's where we reach the limit of the policy debate. On this question, people tell us more about themselves than they do about the candidate.
Who's to say it's a bad thing to change positions on, on foreign policy, on domestic policy? Sometimes you learn, you grow.
And I think that's a part of being a legislator. You have to, make compromises. And remember that Senator Obama has said, he's going to reach across the aisle. He wants to end this bickering and work with other people.
What Obama does is he sits a kind of a askew history, and he is going to pick and choose and cherry pick all the best ideas that work best for the situation as he views it. And in that sense, he's really pragmatic.
Unless somebody has a track record, unless somebody has proven their willingness and ability to stand up to those powers, to take a hardline stance in support of the people, in support of the goals of justice and freedom, there's no reason to believe that they're suddenly going to get that kind of courage and stamina and chutzpah.
America, we cannot turn back. Not with so much work to be done, not with so many children to educate and so many veterans to care for, not with an economy to fix and cities to rebuild and farms to save, not with so many families to protect and so many lives to mend. America, we cannot turn back.
In the sweaty excitement of Obama mania, the candidate's record, his specific policies, his ultimate willingness to confront the powerful, none of that is on trial. But here's the real question. What happens to all this energy if one day the Obama bubble pops?
Part of Obama mania is clearly overseas in particular, but in this country too, is a reaction to George W. Bush. Fatigue, Bush fatigue.
That's understandable to cheer the prospect of Bush leaving office. But the problem was never really Bush anyway.
That down the road, there's going to be a moment of reckoning where people realize that, in fact, the guy, Obama, who they had created in their head, is not sort of the answer to all that is wrong in the world.
To get elected in this country, you've got to appeal to what's called the median voter, the voter right in the middle of the scale who doesn't necessarily tilt one way or the other.
And the nice thing about that sort of politics is that anyone can ventriloquize it and make it say whatever they want it to say. But history has a really ugly way of proving things right or wrong over time.
So I think there is a path to considerable heartbreak, not only in the United States, but around the world. That heartbreak is one thing, total death and destruction is the McCain option. So I myself would opt for heartbreak any day.
Coming up on Inside USA, we continue our deconstruction of the Obama phenomenon. Stick around.